weapons, munitions, and other things essential for its ongoing aggression. So that's just a demonstration of increasingly the indivisibility of security. The fact that actors far away from Ukraine, from Europe, are having a big impact on what is the biggest threat to European security since the end of the Cold War. In response, our two countries have worked to deepen Euro-Atlantic and Atlantic-Pacific convergence, notably on the threat posed by the PRC to our shared security and to our shared values. We welcome France's expanded engagement with Indo-Pacific partners and hope it will continue, including by strengthening, for example, freedom of navigation in the region. We've also worked to forge together a common vision for the global economy, one that is governed by rules of the road. We've invested in our collective productive capacity. We've stood up against Chinese overcapacity and unfair trade practices. We've diversified our supply chains to reduce reliance on Beijing. In these and so many other ways, this partnership between us is producing results that matter, that will make a difference in the lives of our people. And I'm convinced that in the years to come, our countries will continue to work together and to lead together on the world stage, not out of convenience, not out of charity, but because the challenges we face demand our engagement, demand our partnership, demand our cooperation. We'll confront a changing world as we always have, guided by shared commitment to bring greater freedom, greater opportunity, greater security to the people that we're entrusted to represent. So for that, for the work that we've been able to do together, for the work I know our countries will continue to do together, let me simply say thank you, to share my gratitude, and to share my conviction that when our countries are working in common cause, to common effect, there really is nothing we can't accomplish. Thank you.
Les ministres vont prendre quelques questions.
Thank you. Michael Birnbaum from the Washington Post. Secretary Blinken, I wanted to, we've been on this trip with you. We first went to South Korea, where the former ally, President Yoon, is holed up resisting arrest. We visited Tokyo, where leaders are rather annoyed about the decision on blocking the purchase of U.S. steel. We're here in Paris, where, apologies, but the far right is on the rise. The government is a little chaotic. And we're going to Italy next, where the Prime Minister is close friends with Elon Musk. So I wanted to ask, you've talked about your legacy. You've said that you're handing over a set of alliances that's in better shape than when you inherited it. But looking at this pattern, what would you tell the United States people about the challenged relationships that you're facing? A quick question about Greenland. What did you tell Minister Barrot about Trump's interest in taking over European territory? How worried are you about a conflict between the United States and Europe on that front? And lastly, apologize, Elon Musk, what should U.S. allies make of his eagerness to support far-right leaders in Europe and around the world, given his closeness to President-elect Trump and his global business interests? And Minister Barrot, I just wanted to ask, what is France prepared to do to defend Greenland and Denmark if Trump continues to press forward in his attempt to take over Greenlandic territory? Thank you.
Michael, thank you for covering the waterfront. Let me take these out of order. Greenland first. I think one of the basic propositions we brought to our work over the last 4 years is that we're stronger, we're more effective, we get better results when we're working closely with our allies, not saying or doing things that may alienate them. Having said that, it's the idea expressed about Greenland is obviously not a good one, but maybe more important, it's obviously one that's not going to happen So we probably shouldn't waste a lot of time talking about it. On the question of where we are with all of our allies and partners, I'd say two things. First, as you've heard me say many times before, what President Biden entrusted me with doing from day one was to re-engage, re-energize, in some cases reimagine these alliances and partnerships, because he and we are convinced that to do what we need to do to advance the interests of the American people, to actually solve this incredible multiplicity, complexity, interconnectedness of challenges that we face, more than at any time in the 32 years I've been doing it, we're so much better off working with others than going it alone. And I think in ways that we've just talked about, we've demonstrated how much more we can get done when we're working closely with our allies and partners. Now, most of the countries that we're working closely with, our base is our democratic base. That doesn't mean that we're not working with countries that don't neatly fit our definition of what a democracy is. The challenges that we face demand that we work with any country that is interested in solving a problem. But we're always starting with our base of fellow democracies. And one of the hallmarks of a democracy, and we talked about this when we were in Korea, is that when we have challenges, when we have issues, including internally, what sets us apart is the fact that we engage them, we confront them, we deal with them directly, we'll deal with them openly, we deal with them transparently, we don't pretend they don't exist, we don't sweep them under the rug, and sometimes that's not particularly pleasant to look at. It can get ugly, it can be painful, but that's exactly what we do. We talked in Korea about the fact that the Koreans are dealing with their own challenge right now, pursuant to their constitution, pursuant to the rule of law, and doing it peacefully. And I fully expect that they will emerge stronger on the other side. With Japan, do we have a difference over a particular business deal? Yes, but seen in the context of the fact that we are each other's largest investors, one deal does not a relationship make. And on the contrary, the partnership, the alliance with Japan, is stronger than it's ever been, including economically. Here in Europe, I talked about this already. The work that we've done together with our core allies and partners in support of Ukraine has been nothing short of historic. And also the best example, as I said, of burden sharing that I've ever seen in my 32 years. So I could go down the list, but maybe what's most important is this. As we transition, as we work to hand off to the Trump administration, what I've been animated by these past couple of months is making sure we give them the strongest possible hand to play in dealing with all of these challenges. The world doesn't stop because we have a transition. There are so many things happening in real time that I want to make sure the administration that's coming in is fully prepared to engage from day one. And that's exactly what we're doing and what we've been doing. And it's why I'm continuing my work for these next however many days it is, right until noon on the 20th of January. And I believe in area after area, we're handing off, in some cases, things we haven't been able to complete, but that create real opportunities to move things forward in a better way. In the Middle East, we're very close to a ceasefire and hostage agreement. We've talked about this too in recent days. I hope that we can get it over the line in the time that we have left. But if we don't, then the plan that President Biden put forward for a ceasefire hostage deal will be handed over to the incoming administration. And I believe that when we get that deal, and we'll get it, it'll be on the basis of the plan that President Biden put before the world back in May. We've done an incredible amount of work of what follows a hostage ceasefire agreement in terms of the necessary arrangements for Gaza's security, its administration, its reconstruction, a day-after plan. We talked about this with the foreign minister as well. There, too, we're ready to hand that over to the administration so it can work on it and run with it when the opportunity is there. And more broadly, the work, the investment we've made in transformative arrangements for the Middle East, starting with the normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel, all of that is ready to go. if the opportunity presents itself with a ceasefire in Gaza, as well as understandings on a pathway forward for the Palestinians. So there's tremendous opportunity there. Similarly, with Ukraine, everything we've done to make sure that Ukraine would survive, and not only survive, have an opportunity to thrive in the future, is ready to be carried forward. Putin tried to erase Ukraine from the map. He's failed. He's endured, I think, a heavier and heavier strategic setback in everything that he's done in Ukraine. Now we're at a point in the coming year where it may be that the parties will choose to negotiate. We want to make sure, and I think we are making sure, that the incoming administration will be able, if it's going to oversee such a negotiation, to make sure it's doing it from a position of strength, and that President Trump could get the strongest possible deal. I can go down the list, but the point is this. We're handing over a lot of positive opportunities, initiatives, work, and if the next administration chooses to carry it forward, I think that will be clearly in the interests of the United States. Private citizens can, in our country, can say what they want, what they believe, and everyone else can draw their own conclusions and take their own positions on the matter. So I'm not going to comment beyond saying he, like any American, has the right to express his views, his opinions.
Quant à moi, d'abord, je voudrais vous démentir. Le gouvernement français est au travail. Et quant à la politique étrangère de la France, sa ligne a été réexprimée avec beaucoup de force par le président de la République dans son discours lundi, en ouverture de la 30e conférence des ambassadrices et des ambassadeurs. Deuxième élément, l'amitié entre la France et les États-Unis a plus de 2 siècles. Je vous ai cité Lafayette, je vous ai cité le D-Day que les présidents Macron et Biden ont célébré côte à côte. Et je voudrais tout simplement vous dire que nous avons survécu à 59 élections américaines, nous survivrons évidemment à la 60e. Ensuite, vous me parlez de l'Europe. Et je voudrais en profiter pour vous dire le lieu dans lequel vous vous trouvez exactement. Ou plus précisément, le lieu où Tony Blinken et moi-même nous tenons exactement. C'est exactement ici, devant cette cheminée, qu'il y a 75 ans bientôt, Robert Schuman prononça en 1 minute 30 une déclaration qui permit la création de l'organisation politique qui a donné lieu à l'Union européenne. C'était à l'époque la Communauté européenne du charbon et de l'acier. Ça s'est produit le 9 mai 1950 et c'est cette date que les Européens se sont donnés pour célébrer chaque année leur Europe. Et donc, comme Tony, je vais vous répondre par une question. Est-ce que nous pensons que les États-Unis envahiront le Groenland? La réponse est non. Mais est-ce que nous pensons que nous entrons dans une période qui voit le retour de la loi du plus fort? La réponse est oui. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle, depuis 7 ans, et sous l'impulsion du président de la République notamment, l'Europe s'est renforcée dans le domaine de la défense, dans le domaine commercial, dans le domaine de la compétitivité, ce qui est très bien, mais il nous faut maintenant aller beaucoup plus loin pour affirmer ce que nous sommes, pour affirmer ce que nous voulons, et pour cela, et le président l'a rappelé lundi matin encore une fois, il faut que l'Europe se réveille.
Merci. Bonjour, Emma Barrier pour LCI. Ma première question s'adresse à vous deux en français. Donc cette fois, quel regard portez-vous donc sur ces déclarations expansionnistes de Donald Trump à propos du Groenland et du Canada? Et Monsieur Blinken, pourriez-vous nous répondre en français si vous voulez bien? Et ma deuxième question, c'est quelle est la garantie américaine donc sur la poursuite de l'aide américaine donc à l'Ukraine après le 20 janvier? Je vous remercie.
Écoutez, je ne peux que répéter ce que j'ai dit il y a un instant. Franchement, ça ne vaut pas la peine de passer du temps sur ces questions parce que ça ne va pas se faire. Donc, pourquoi perdre le temps à en discuter? En ce qui concerne l'aide américaine, le soutien américain, ce que je peux vous dire, c'est que pendant la durée de l'administration du président Biden, on continuera chaque jour d'apporter ce soutien aux Ukrainiens, y compris dans les jours à venir. Et en même temps, nous avons un soutien exceptionnel venant de la part de nos partenaires. Pendant les 2 et quelques années de cette agression russe contre l'Ukraine, les États-Unis, nous avons apporté à peu près 100 milliards de dollars en soutien à l'Ukraine. Nos amis en Europe, et au-delà de l'Europe, en Asie, 150 milliards de dollars. Donc nous voyons là que nos partenaires font le nécessaire, et je suis convaincu, continueront à faire le nécessaire pour l'Ukraine.
Merci, messieurs les ministres. Une question.
Thank you so much. Alex Raffaldo from Nicosia, Cyprus. Mr. Secretary, I want to take my chance and follow up on Ukraine again. President Zelensky gave an interview early this week, and he said that in his view, there can be no meaningful security guarantees for Ukraine if the United States is not part of it. Do you think that Europe alone can do it? And Mr. Foreign Minister, same question but differently. Given the incoming administration's viewpoint, can you see it being there in a coalition of European countries that would be willing to provide guarantees to Ukraine, which will be enough for lasting peace? And or do you just think that willpower is not there? Is America still a key on this? If I may, very quickly follow up on concerns across the continent over Russian interference directly in the election processes in Europe. What can Europe do to better vaccinate, if you want, against that problem? And finally, Mr. Secretary, if I go to you on Georgia. President Macron this week backed the protesters in Tbilisi, and he said that new elections could be a way out of the current political crisis. And they've taken some measures, sanctions, but I want to give you a chance to expand on that. Is there anything that the Western allies can do to save Georgia's democracy? Thanks so much.
Thank you. Happy to start. On Ukraine, as we've been very clear, what we've all been working to do is to make sure that as Ukraine engages this year, 2025, it can engage it from a position of strength, whether that means continuing the fight because Russia refuses to stop, or whether it means entering into negotiation to get at least to a ceasefire and maybe beyond. And as I mentioned a moment ago, we'll continue to the very last day of this administration to bring that support forward to Ukraine. I know that our partners will continue well beyond. If there's going to be a negotiation, if there's going to be a ceasefire because we brought it to that point, I think it's going to be critical, and I believe that the incoming administration will want to make sure that they negotiate the best possible deal. And the best possible deal has to be one that builds into it real deterrence against Russia repeating its aggression 6 months, a year, 2 years, you name it. Because here's what we know. Putin has not and will not give up on his imperial ambitions. And if there's a ceasefire, he'll want to try to use the time to rest, to refit, and eventually to reattack. That's why it's absolutely essential that part of this include an effective deterrent against any further aggression by Russia. Now, that can take different forms, including the form of having certain countries police any demarcation or any ceasefire line. And that's something I know that's been discussed and that we talked about today with the foreign minister. The next administration will have to decide, if it comes to that, what role, if any, the United States would play. But again, I believe that the incoming administration, if there's going to be a deal, will want the best possible deal, one that doesn't unravel when Russia sees an opening to reattack. And one way or another, as I said, we need to build into it the necessary deterrence so that that doesn't happen. On Georgia, we talked about this as well. And what both France and the United States have seen is democratic backsliding that's deeply concerning. And not just democratic backsliding, but a retreat away from the aspirations of the overwhelming majority of the Georgian people. The aspiration to build a future that is closer and closer to Europe. So, having seen that backsliding, having seen a government that's acting in contravention of the clear will of the people that it purports to represent, having seen an election that raised many questions, having seen repressive actions taken by the government about people who are trying to speak freely and openly, we, as well as our partners, have taken action. We sanctioned the leader of the Georgia Dream Party, Ivanishvili, as well as other members of the government. We suspended American assistance to the Georgian government, acting together with almost all of our partners in the OSCE, including France. We invoked the Vienna mechanism through the OSCE to also make clear that the steps that have been taken, including legislation that profoundly squeezes the space for freedom of expression and freedom of action by civil society, that has to change. So I think you see a clear unity of purpose when it comes to the United States, France, many other countries, faced with the very unfortunate actions of the government in Georgia.
Vous m'avez interrogé sur l'Ukraine d'abord, et de ce point de vue-là, je veux souligner ce qu'a dit Antony Blinken. Si depuis le premier jour nous soutenons l'Ukraine, si nous avons dit que nous soutiendrons l'Ukraine aussi longtemps et intensément que nécessaire, c'est d'abord et bien sûr parce qu'il en va de l'avenir du droit international. Parce qu'accepter une capitulation de l'Ukraine, ce serait consacrer définitivement la loi du plus fort. Et comme je l'ai dit, comme Tony l'a dit, il en va aussi de la sécurité du continent européen, des Européens et des Français. Et de ce point de vue-là, il faut nous défaire de toute forme de complaisance ou de toute forme d'aveuglement vis-à-vis des intentions impérialistes, je reprends le terme utilisé par Tony Blinken, de Vladimir Poutine. Pourquoi ? Eh bien parce que nous avons vu depuis le mois de février 2022 que la menace russe, la menace de Vladimir Poutine, a muté. Elle a montré qu'elle pouvait, que la Russie de Vladimir Poutine pouvait se lancer dans une invasion à grande échelle, comme elle l'a fait en Ukraine. Elle s'est internationalisée en repoussant, ou en tout cas en exportant le conflit vers l'Asie et en y attirant la Corée du Nord. Et elle s'est hybridée en prenant des formes variées dans tous les champs de la conflictualité et en agressant un certain nombre de pays, y compris des États membres de l'Union européenne. Et donc face à cela, comme Tony Blinken l'a dit, notre priorité, c'est évidemment de soutenir l'Ukraine et de lui permettre d'entrer le moment venu, le moment qu'elle choisira, dans des négociations de paix en position de force, mais c'est aussi, et pour l'avenir, de nous assurer que jamais la guerre ne reviendra sur le continent européen. Ce qui va appeler de notre part, de la part de toute l'Union européenne, un effort renforcé pour élever nos défenses et dissuader la poussée vers l'ouest de la menace de Vladimir Poutine. Ensuite, sur la question de la désinformation, très rapidement, et des ingérences dans les processus électoraux. Là encore, l'Europe a été très claire. En 2022, sous présidence française de l'Union européenne, nous nous sommes donné des règles strictes d'encadrement des réseaux sociaux en adoptant le règlement sur les services numériques, et je vous en renvoie à ces articles 34, 35 et 36, qui dit très précisément que les plateformes de réseaux sociaux doivent mettre tout en œuvre pour éviter que leurs plateformes viennent perturber le débat public, sous peine de lourdes amendes qui peuvent aller jusqu'à 6% du chiffre d'affaires mondial, et dans les cas les plus graves, qui peuvent aller jusqu'au bannissement de l'Union européenne. Il appartient désormais à la Commission européenne de faire appliquer ces nouvelles lois européennes que nous nous sommes données, et je l'appelle instamment à le faire, avec beaucoup de fermeté et avec beaucoup de clarté. Si elle ne le faisait pas, alors il conviendrait qu'elle puisse restituer aux États membres qui le souhaitent la possibilité de le faire à leur niveau.
Bonjour Monsieur Mathieu Rabéchaud, AFP. Une question pour vous deux. La Turquie menace les combattants kurdes de Syrie d'une opération militaire. Que peuvent faire les États-Unis et la France pour prévenir cela et contribuer à la stabilisation de la Syrie? Et par ailleurs, je reviens sur les déclarations d'Elon Musk en français, s'il vous plaît, Monsieur le Ministre. Monsieur Musk sera un membre de l'administration américaine dans moins de 15 jours. Il a fait des déclarations qualifiées d'ingérentes dans la politique intérieure britannique et allemande. Est-ce approprié?
Chacun a le droit d'exprimer ses opinions, mais évidemment, lorsqu'on participe à un gouvernement ou lorsqu'on aspire à y participer, les opinions ont une valeur particulière. Alors, de deux choses l'une. Soit les interventions auxquelles vous faites référence sont des opérations de communication dans le cadre de processus électoraux ou du débat public de certains pays européens, et c'est évidemment très regrettable. Soit c'est une alliance assumée avec des partis de l'ultra-droite qui flirtent avec les courants néo-nazis, comme c'est le cas avec l'AfD. Et alors là, il faudra que le parti républicain puisse assumer de lier son destin avec celui de partis qu'il représente, tout ce que le Parti républicain a toujours combattu. Ensuite, sur votre première question, merci de l'avoir posée, et elle me permet de revenir sur l'un des sujets sur lesquels les États-Unis et la France ont œuvré de concert depuis bien longtemps et singulièrement depuis 4 ans. La lutte résolue et sans relâche contre le terrorisme islamiste et en particulier contre Daesh en Syrie. Et je veux à cette occasion présenter devant Antony Blinken mes condoléances, les condoléances de la France, aux victimes de l'attentat terroriste qui a frappé la Nouvelle-Orléans. Les Kurdes de Syrie ont été pour les États-Unis et pour la France des alliés fidèles, des alliés résolus dans la lutte contre le terrorisme islamiste. Avec la chute du régime criminel et barbare de Bachar al-Assad, un nouvel espoir est né en Syrie. C'est un espoir fragile, mais c'est un espoir réel. L'espoir d'un redressement politique, économique, moral de la Syrie qui ne sera possible que si toutes les communautés trouvent leur place dans cette transition politique. Et dans cette transition politique, il faut évidemment que les Kurdes de Syrie puissent trouver toute leur place. Nous le leur devons, parce qu'ils ont été nos compagnons, nos frères d'armes dans la lutte contre Daesh, mais c'est aussi dans l'intérêt de l'avenir de la Syrie que de permettre aux Kurdes de participer pleinement à l'avenir du pays. Et c'est pourquoi je veux saluer les efforts qui ont été ceux de Tony Blinken pour faciliter des médiations entre les Kurdes de Syrie et les Turcs, mais aussi entre les Kurdes de Syrie et l'autorité de transition, dont le principal dirigeant a pu s'entretenir avec le général Masloum il y a quelques jours. Nous allons poursuivre nos efforts pour que dans le nord-est de la Syrie, où, je le rappelle, plusieurs dizaines de milliers de combattants terroristes sont aujourd'hui dans des prisons gardées par les Kurdes du nord-est syrien, eh bien, les garanties de sécurité auxquelles la Turquie aspire légitimement puissent être garanties, mais également les intérêts de sécurité des Kurdes et leur droit plein et entier à participer pleinement à la construction de l'avenir de leur pays.
And I have very little to add because I agree entirely with what Jean-Noel has just said. I simply say this. For both of our countries, it is essential, as Syria is navigating this transition, that we keep a lid on the terrorist threat, the enduring terrorist threat posed by ISIS or by Daesh. And as Jean-Noel said, we've seen possibly a manifestation of that threat with the horrific incident in Louisiana, where the individual in question said he was an adherent of Daesh. It shows, unfortunately, the enduring potency of the ideology, but an even more acute danger would be if the more than 10,000 foreign terrorist fighters who are being detained under the vigilance of our Kurdish friends in Syria were to get out and reconstitute the very potent force that was Daesh in Syria, in Iraq, before it was defeated. And this is an enduring American interest as well as a French interest. And it's enduring as well, I believe, with the incoming administration. When Daesh was trying to build its caliphate, its actual physical caliphate, a territorial caliphate, it controlled a huge chunk of land between Iraq and Syria. And that territorial caliphate was undone, was defeated. And that was completed under President Trump's watch during his first term, with taking back Raqqa. So I believe that the incoming administration, like this administration, will continue to show a very strong interest in not allowing Daesh to rear its ugly head again, to see a resurgence. And as Jean-Noel said, a critical part of that is making sure that we enable the Syrian Democratic Forces to do the job that they've been doing in the interests of everyone, of securing the foreign terrorist fighters who are there, as we continue to work to repatriate fighters and to repatriate their families to countries of origin. So we've been working very closely as well with our ally, our partner in Turkey, which has very legitimate concerns, of course, about the PKK and about terrorism, to navigate this transition, to navigate it in a way that I think leads to a resolution of many of those concerns, including over time with the integration of the Syrian Democratic Forces into Syrian National Forces, including with the departure of foreign members of that force to their own countries, including with a resolution of questions around oil, around borders, etc. But that's a process that's going to take some time. And in the meantime, what is profoundly not in the interest of everything positive we see happening in Syria would be a conflict. And we've worked very hard to make sure that that doesn't happen. We'll continue to do that. And I believe that the incoming administration will do the same thing.